Mike Moore Media, the first place to hear Rockingham County news and information.
On this edition of Rise Up Reidsville, I'm talking to Chris Phillips, Assistant Reidsville City Manager of Administration, Finance Director, and now Interim Reidsville City Manager. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Hey, doing good. Good morning.
Well, it's good to talk to you. Let's talk about Preston Mitchell, who was City Manager for Reidsville for about 5 years. And he's moved on to another position in Mebane. And, you know, I'm thinking, Chris, it seems like so much was accomplished while Preston was here. It seemed like he was here a lot longer.
Yeah, it does in some ways. He was here about 5.5 years, which is really the average tenure for a city manager now.
Is it?
They'll tell you can get plan to get 3 to 7 years out of them. And we had him right there at the sweet spot of 5.5, and a lot of things did happen. He came in at a good time and was able to help us move forward. And I tell you, I can definitely speak for our whole management team here at the city when I can tell you we enjoyed working for Mr. Mitchell, with Mr. Mitchell, and we wish him and his family the best as he moves on and explores other things in his career.
Sure, yeah. Well, we talk about Team Reidsville, and it really is a team. And, I'm thinking that he really surrounded himself with a lot of team players, didn't he, Chris?
He certainly did. He in that 5.5 years, he had the opportunity to bring in several management team members through retirements or folks that moved on to other opportunities. And the team he built's really strong. And I feel like that we're really gonna attract a pretty deep talent pool that want to come here and be our next city manager. I'm the interim manager as the city council searches for that next city manager for us.
Let's talk about that search. What's involved and what's being done currently? Well,
of course, the city manager works for the city council. He is or she is the employee that they are responsible for hiring and or firing if that ever was the case. So the city council, they've engaged developmental associates to assist them in the process. That's the same company that brought us Preston some years ago, and they're one of the leading agencies right now in job searches for government entities. So a lot of times cities larger than us may do their own search, but a lot of them use a search firm. And cities our size definitely do. Cities smaller than us do as well. But Development Associates actually worked with Eden in hiring their new manager last year.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I know the name. And, it's a company, and there are others out there, but companies like the one you're working with, that's their job, and they do it well, don't they?
They do, and people know to look at them to see what the opportunities are out there. So they have a pretty good base that follows them. So what they'll do is, and they have already advertised our position, so they'll advertise it for some time. They'll actively recruit if they think they know folks that might be a good fit and that might be looking, because they do have a pool that they're familiar with. And then they'll help council to sort through all those applications. They'll conduct sort of a beginning interview, a screening interview, just to see if the folks are a good fit to move forward in the process. And then they'll hold an assessment center for the top candidates. And that's a pretty intense day where they go through different exercises and have people from the industry that are there participating to really see how they react in certain situations. And then finally they'll have the top candidates that they'll help organize interviews with the city council.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a deadline, any kind of timeline on that you're working with?
Not really. I mean, the whole process does just take several weeks, actually months, to do, just to walk through that whole process. And I think folks in this industry for that level job realize it's a process. You know, the thing is, you're a victim of who's job opening. So we hope that there's really good folks out there that were considering a career move and saw Reidsville as a high spot that they could try to move to, and it just takes a while. And once they actually have the final candidate, it's traditional in this business that you give a 30-day notice before you go to another job. Mm-hmm. So we expect once they have the candidate, it'll be another month before they're on board at least. This time of year, as you know, we're deep into budget. So the closer you get to June, whoever this candidate is may have a budget that they're trying to complete and get presented and adopted by their council. So that 30 days actually could end up being 45 days or 60 days, because they're going to want to leave that other job in really good shape. Mm-hmm. And we're prepared for however long it takes. As I said, I'm the interim manager, but of course I'm leaning heavily on all the other department heads, and we'll keep the car in the right lane until a new driver gets here for us.
Sure.
So if it does take through the budget process, we're prepared to complete the budget process and have it ready for city council if we don't have a new manager until that time.
I know you are. Yeah, there again, that's Team Reidsville at play, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly.
Let's talk about city council and the budget that you're working on now, and the retreat that you just had last Friday and Saturday. What was accomplished in the retreat, Chris?
Well, yeah, so, we talk about our top spots open, and, that's going to be a process of its own. But in the meantime, the day-to-day business here continues, and one of the main focus is going to be preparing that next budget, the 2021-2022 fiscal year budget. Sounds weird to talk about 2022 already, but that's how it is here at a city. You're, especially my job, I'm primarily in the finance department, and we're always either living in the past with finishing up an audit, or we're already living in the future working on a budget, and it's rare that we get to live in the present.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what the city council retreat was about. So it was 2 virtual 4-hour segments. One was last Friday morning, and the other was on Saturday morning. And those are actually available to, if any of your listeners want to go out and have about 8 hours to hear all this information. We learned a lot in the last year, so we now are really comfortable with using Zoom and doing virtual meetings, and we were able to broadcast. It was actually broadcast live on Friday and Saturday through YouTube. So if a citizen had the opportunity, they could have really watched that retreat in real time. So the retreat really time to discuss the past. So our fiscal year end, that was June 30, 2020, that audit, of course, is complete, and the financial statements were complete. So we started off the retreat with an auditor presentation. And they went through and hit the high points from that completed audit, and council had copies of the audit report, and they were able to ask any questions from the auditors that they wanted to, and that's how we started talking about the past.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then looking at the future, as you said, and what's coming down the road with the budget. Well,
so the retreat starts with the past, and then we do move into the current year, the 2021. It's really a mid-year review, but doing a mid-year review of the fiscal year we're in is really the jumping-off point for next year, for the fiscal year that we're going to be starting to work on. So this retreat is really threefold. Talk about the past, talk about the present, talk about the future. And so I was able to go over the current year with City Council, and very fortunate to report to them that there were no big surprises in the current year. And I think that's to be expected in a normal year, but considering that we were really just jumped, head first into the pandemic, when we were preparing the budget that we're currently working in. And so much uncertainty, so much unknown, but not to have any surprises related to all of that, I feel is a really good report.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Be able to tell them that. When we were working on the budget for this current year, some of our industry guys were saying you need to look at cutting revenues, especially like sales tax. You need to look at cutting those up to 40% based on the pandemic. And while we thought that was to the extreme, and we did not do a budget that was that drastic, we did make some cuts and held back where we thought there could have been some growth. And I'm glad to see that right now, and of course all this can change because we're still in the pandemic, but right now those revenues have not been drastically cut like it could have been. They actually are showing a little bit of a growth. So that's going to make this year be a pretty good year. We sort of held the line, and we're seeing that the line actually has improved for us. So this year's going to end up well, and I was able to tell them all that. But also, we already know some things about next year. So it is the beginning point of discussing that next year and the budget and the challenges that we already know are going to happen. And it's really a ton of information that's in those 2 4-hour blocks. And I think one thing we learned this year is doing it virtually and doing it in 4-hour blocks is 4 hours seems to be sort of the sweet spot for productivity.
Mm-hmm.
Our council was really engaged. When you try to go for a whole day retreat, you of course have a meal break, and I think all of us, after having lunch, have a little bit of a lull, and to try to listen to presentations and stay engaged when you really want to take a nap is kind of hard to do sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it's just one of those things that we've learned doing things outside of the box, and there's another one. The 4-hour blocks, Friday and Saturday, seem to work very well. We have about a minute left, Chris, for you to kind of sum things up, I guess.
Okay. So I said it's a jumping off point for our budget, and the next steps in that is what we do traditionally. It's a very block approach. Put one block and then the next block and the next block, and the next thing you know, you've built a budget, and it's over several months. But we'll be getting a packet out to all of our departments. They will think about next year and submit their budget request, including capital items. It comes back along with narratives talking about their goals for the year. They have justifications if they ask for capital. All that comes in, is put together for the expense side. That's compared to a revenue estimate that comes out of the finance department, and then you get that gap, the difference between the revenues that are expected and the expenses that are requested, and then you start the process of narrowing the gap. There's always going to be more requests than revenue, and you have to go in and prioritize, cut some expense requests, see if there are any other revenue sources that could help narrow the gap, and you just keep going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until you get a balanced budget that we can present to City Council. After it's presented to them, it's made available to the public. There's always a public hearing, usually in June, and City Council then has the opportunity to formally adopt a budget that's got a lot of back and forth and a lot of work in it, and it's usually a pretty good guide for the fiscal year that's coming up. And that's what we'll be doing for the next few months. And I'm sure there's a lot of folks that may hear this that may think it sounds like torture, but for those of us in it, it's not that bad, and it's actually fun building that and seeing where we can get to.
Yeah, well, you're a numbers person, and you've been through a number of budgets, so I know it will go smoothly. Chris, always great to talk to you. Good luck on the budget plans and the city manager search, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye. That's bye. Chris Phillips. He is currently interim city manager for Reidsville. Get more information at riseupreadsville.com.